All right, Nick Wright. We get him about once every 3 or 4 weeks, and I always love it. So on television, I got about 12 minutes, and I can't, extrapolate. I can't go into too much detail. But I was thinking about this today when I was taking the train home, which, yeah, I do now take the train home every
Yeah.
day.
Wow.
I did.
Good for you, buddy.
One of the people.
Yeah, man of the people. It's what everyone's always said about you.
So there's a knock on SGA, and I've said this. He's not a lot of fun to watch, but it's interesting. I went back to like George Mikan.
Okay.
And if you go back, take LeBron, Michael Jordan, and Kobe out. They are hyper athletic. They are among NBA players insane. And what I'm going to mention to you are the leaders of dynasties and the leaders of champions. George Mikan, Havlicek Kuzi, Moses Malone, Dumars Isaiah, Akeem, Bird McHale, Magic Kareem, Duncan Tony Parker, Steph Draymond, Jokic Murray, SGA, Dirk, Luca separately, Katie Harden, Bill Walton, Rick Barry, Wes Unseld, Gus Williams. You start going from the 60s on. It is remarkable how often the hyper athletic player, the Sean Kemp, the Drexler, the Neek, doesn't win titles. We are fascinated with them, but it's the foundational player. It's the player that gives you 28 and plays on both ends. And so I think the league's history doesn't favor Ant. It favors SGA, who is I said this today, SGA averages 33 a night because he scores 33 a night. Ant averages 25 because he scores 39 and then 19.
Oh, okay, yeah. There's a consistency with SGA for sure.
And Duncan and Havlicek and Akeem. Now, again, LeBron, Kobe, MJ, take them off the board. But most of our great dynasties and teams have been about really great coaching and at times kind of a boring, efficient. I mean, isn't Jason Tatum closer to SGA than Ant? Is he not?
Yeah, no, Tatum might be, but I'm going to push back here because I don't think intentionally, but you left out Bill Russell, who won 11, and while he wasn't flashy, was either the best or the second best athlete of his era. And that when I say best or well, he was second best because Wilt Chamberlain was there.
Right.
Now, he only won 2. You did not include Dr. J, who only won 1 in the NBA, but dominated in the ABA.
Yes.
And then, of course, there is the 10 between Michael and LeBron that are like, so, and there's 10 right there. I think that Ant is being, so here's I think, an odd take, but I believe it to be true. I think to the audience, Ant and SGA feel like they're the same age, even though SGA is almost 4 years older.
That's
because
right.
it feels like they have both been on like fringe contender to wait legitimate contender to wait real expectations the same amount of time. So the fact that Ant's 23 and SGA soon will be 27, people are shocked when they know like SGA older than Luka. Like that doesn't feel right because Luka was a prominent star immediately. So I think there is a little too much maybe Ant skepticism right now because he hasn't now in back-to-back conference finals come through, but it was a testament to him that they got to these conference finals, and at 23, SGA wasn't anything close to an MVP candidate himself.
You know what he is? He's Lamar Jackson the first couple of years before Lamar, like Mahomes admitted in year 3, okay, I'm good on the pre-snap stuff now. At one point,
Sure.
You're just being an athlete. And then Mahomes goes, yeah, middle of year 3, it slowed down and I could see stuff before it happened. But and Mahomes is cognitively really quick. And Russell Wilson admits, and Brady admits, and that Ant is sort of the great young athlete quarterback. Now, Jaden Daniels, total outlier. It's like he's got it down now.
Yep.
But it's like Ant's the quarterback, like, man, wait until he's
wait
great
until I know what
pre-snap.
I'm doing. Right. Wait until I
That's
actually
right.
know what I'm doing.
That's right.
And so, no, and listen, and obviously also has some maturing to do, I think, on and off
Yeah.
the court. But he's
Yeah.
23. And I think Shai is, kind of wise beyond his youth, the way he talks. And like,
Yeah.
here is, I, I thought Shai was very clearly the league's MVP this year.
Yeah.
Until the Lakers traded for Luka, I thought pretty clearly all year Oklahoma City was the best team. Once the Lakers traded for
Yeah.
Luka, I thought they could beat them. But the moment the Lakers got knocked out, I said I thought Oklahoma City was going to win it. And in my opinion, Game 4 against the Timberwolves, they won the championship. Like I think this NBA season, I'm still excited for it. But the deciding event has happened. I think the Thunder are going to win the title. The SGA stuff that where people push back is it feels like some of the flopping about and foul stuff is unnecessary, and it's just something we have seen other MVPs, Embiid and most notably Harden, do this stuff. Nobody ever likes that. Like that's not picking on SGA. That is it's something people don't like, and people come back to me with, well, Nick, you love Luka. Luka does not flop. Luka whines. Luka, if he gets a call, he's angry he didn't get it sooner. If he doesn't get a call, he's furious. But he is trying to finish through contact. Shai is being a little cagier. He almost never whines, but he doesn't need to because he's getting the calls. But listen, he is a great, great player, and they're going to win 84 games this year, maybe lose less than 20, and he's going to average north of 30 throughout. It's an all-time great season.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, I don't know if I told you this. I may have told Danny Parkins this. The advantage Oklahoma City has accumulating all these draft picks. So I've always been a believer in baseball and NBA, just give away draft picks. It's the opposite in football because you're getting a 24-year-old and you can get 50 to 60% that hit, and some hit immediately, and they're grown men and they're Jamar Chase and they're the second best receiver in the league.
And it's a hard cap and you need cheap players.
Yeah, and so you get guys that come in and not only are good. Quentin Nelson, guard Colts, was like, oh, is he the second best guard at 24? Yep. Doesn't work that way in baseball. Even Bryce Harper goes to the minors. So, when I look at these draft picks, here's an advantage. I'd be very reticent, very reluctant if I was OKC to move off this group. Not only are they good, but what is happening with NIL? Players like Zach Edey are like, I must stay another year. European players now. Illinois is going to have 5 European starters. The Spanish leagues that have most of the talent are thinking of shuttering. American colleges now, NIL, are buying the best European players. What does that mean? College basketball has been fortified over the last 2 years. The quality of Florida playing Houston, you're like, oh, there's 7 NBA guys on these teams. The UConn team 2 years ago, like, they had 2 guys make the all-NBA top 2-3 teams. Zach Edey, comes in. He's really dominant. We went through a 20-year stretch of college basketball where Doug McDermott won College Player of the Year and is the 9th best player on a good team's roster. Garza, was it Luka Garza? Tyler Hansborough. We are now moving back because players are, first of all, not going to the G League as often, staying in college, and now they're poaching European players. Those draft picks now, there could be a much higher percentage of them that hit and can play early. Hey, so we all make mistakes, but owning up to them is the right thing to do. So, Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula and it did not go over well with their fans. So Degree's whole thing is it turns up the sweat and odor protection when you turn up the effort. And good thing it does because Cool Rush fans really turned up the effort to bring the original formula back. One guy even started an online petition, and Degree listened. They admitted they effed up. They're bringing back the original Cool Rush scent. They're bringing it back, and it's exactly how you remember it. Cool, crisp, and fresh. It's back in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. There's a reason it's been the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. It's the same reason why people were not happy when it changed. So if you've never tried it, it might be a good time to see what the fuss is about. Head to your local Walmart, target and try the OG degree cool rush for yourself.
Well, so here's the other thing where they do. So if you dive into Oklahoma City's pick bounty, and it is a ton of picks, when you look at it, none of them really project out to be top 5 picks. But it's going to be a lot of like, they got the 9th, they got the 14th, they got the 17th, all that stuff. And they already did this once with this guy I don't know anything about, but his name's Topic, who stayed in Europe. They drafted him a year or two ago, and he should come over next year. What they will be able to do is draft international guys who say, hey, you can draft me, but I'm not coming over for a couple years. And I think they will be totally fine with that because they don't have enough space on their roster right now. They don't need guys to come in and play immediately. And the point you're making is they can, instead of drafting the 19-year-old who people hope in 4 years is going to be really good, they might take more of the approach of, we're going to draft the senior who can give us 8 minutes a night in year 1, and that's useful. And listen, Presti's done a great job drafting. Where I would caution everyone is, of the last 5 NBA champions, 4 of them, the moment they were winning the championship, we were all pretty convinced they were going to win a bunch, and none of them have even made round 3. The Lakers, when they won in the bubble, was like, well, LeBron's still the best player in the world. Anthony Davis has got to a next level. How are they? I guess the Lakers have gotten back to a round 3.
Well, but Denver, Boston.
Right. So exactly. Milwaukee the next year. Holy shit. Giannis put it all together. They traded for Holiday. They're obviously going to be dominant. They haven't been back to round 3. Golden State was different because Golden State, we looked at it as the end of a run. Like they already had their championships. Certainly Denver. We were like, okay, it's the Jokic era. All year people thought, well, Boston's the best team. And now I can see it happening again with OKC where people are going to be like, who's going to stop them? What is remarkable is that OKC has gotten back to this point. That last night, or the game 4, Shea, J-Dub, and Chet combined for 95 points, Colin. 94 was the high water mark for KD, Russ, and Harden together. And, that team was there. I think KD was better than Shea. Their big.
But those guys now in the rearview mirror are really flawed. Like Harden and Westbrook need the ball.
It doesn't fit as well. No, these 3 guys fit together better.
Yes.
Those 3 guys are a higher talent. But if we, like, that team, when they were all 23 or younger, made the finals, won game 1 of those finals against LeBron's Heat. They were favorites going into the finals, big favorites after game 1. And that franchise has not been in the finals again since then. Has not won another finals game. Now I think they're going to win the championship. I would pump the brakes on anyone saying this is, that this is about to be the Oklahoma City era. I just feel like we feel in the moment right after an NBA team wins a title, we're always like, well, they're just going to keep winning titles. That's not what the last decade has been.
Well, Holmgren could get hurt. At some point, Jalen Williams will want to get paid.
Well, that's the problem is the getting paid. The problem is Oklahoma City, which has never paid the luxury tax, they're about to have to pay Shea $1 million a game. That's what it's coming. And so but right now in the moment, they won 68 games, and I don't think I think the last adversity they're going to face for the season, they faced in game 4 and they came through.
So this is something I thought about. Years and years ago, this may have been 15 years ago, sports fans, I think, are more savvy today than ever. And a lot of it's just because of the explosion of social media, and you can learn things just watching TikTok. I mean, I use the TikTok store every day. And by the way, it's never let me down. I buy power bars. I buy workout gear. It's never let me down. The TikTok store is completely undervalued. You'd think
that's amazing.
Yeah, the first time I used it, I'm like, sketchy. I'm probably getting robbed. It's $24. It's fantastic. Everything
Okay.
I buy in the TikTok store is amazing. That's not an ad. I bought power bars today. So, but I was thinking years ago, I did a topic where I said, this is when I would take calls. I was only doing a radio show. I said, you guys don't understand. Madonna was in her prime. I said, is much more well known than Derek Jeter in his prime. It's not close. One's a global star. I got 30 calls in a row. No way. Derek.
Yeah.
I'm like, Derek, the brand of the Yankees is bigger than Derek Jeter. Like Derek Jeter's not if he played in Kansas City, he'd just be an all-star. Sports fans, they struggle sometimes with like recognizing that nobody knows who Jalen Hurts is out of America unless you're a sports fan. Your sister who doesn't love sports doesn't know who Jalen Hurts is, even after the Super Bowl. She's heard of maybe the tush push, but that's about it. And I was thinking about this. How many NBA players, and I know Caitlin Clark is an athlete, but she's like beyond that now. She kind of transcends sports. She's like, it's racial, it's political, it's polarizing, it's a lot of things.
Yes.
How many NBA players are more famous than Caitlin Clark? LeBron, Steph, absolutely.
Maybe Durant.
That's what I put. I wrote down KD maybe.
Yeah.
In 1 year, out of women's basketball, for a horrible team when she arrived, outside of LeBron and Steph, she is the most well-known basketball player currently playing in the United States.
Oh, yes. And I don't think that's close. Like I think I might have said this to you last year that I thought the most famous basketball player under 30 was Caitlin Clark. And it's like you said, I don't think it's particularly close. Like she is demonstrably and inarguably more famous than all of this generation's NBA stars. She just is. Like it really LeBron is, I don't know, probably one of the 20 most famous people in the world. At a secondary level, there is Steph, and at a far different level, there is Durant. And the next basketball person, like active basketball person, is Caitlin Clark. Like I don't think that's a hot take. I don't think that's controversial. I think that's just obvious. And I think that it is awesome for the sport. And I think that it is awesome for sports fans. And it is what I think some people need to be okay. Like this is apples and oranges, but not exactly. And this is not a fair comparison, but just the audience is smart. They'll figure it out. I think it's probable that LaMelo Ball is more famous than Tyrese Halliburton. No one with a brain thinks he's better than Tyrese Halliburton.
But he is more famous.
You agree. So I think sometimes like diehard WNBA or women's basketball fans conflate the discussion about fame and popularity with a ranking of players' quality. Now, Caitlin Clark is, to me, I mean, she was first team all WNBA last year. She has a legitimate argument that she's a top 5 player in the league, and before this injury, probably was going to make a real case to win league MVP this year. But if someone's like, hey, I have WNBA League Pass, I watch the whole league I have for years, I think she is currently the 7th best player in the league, I'd listen to him. Like, okay, maybe, like, you know, Brianna Stewart, Asia Wilson, like, whomever. But that's not the discussion. Now, it is also important that your fame not lap your ability. Again, not to like, I'm just thinking because we're talking women's sports. An example of that to me would be like, this would make me feel old, but Anna Kournikova. Remember, so she was at a time the most famous women's tennis player, and I think she was during a lot of that time not one of the 20 best. She was more famous, far more famous than she was successful. But it's quite often that your fame lags your ability, as I think happens to Nikola Jokic. as an
Right.
example. And it is also often that your fame, is a few steps ahead of your ability. When
Right.
it is a supernova moment is when when you are the most famous and you're the best. Like that that was LeBron with the NBA, obviously Jordan, Kobe, at least was close to the best, if not the best for a brief period. And it's what is going to happen, I believe, with Caitlin Clark. Because I do think she will have a period where she is clearly the best player in the league. And again, it could happen sooner than later. But it is so great for the sport because she is someone that people show up to the party because of her. And where I give the evolution of the WNBA and women's basketball credit is, I think people show up to the party, whether it was for the women's NCAA tournament or the WNBA, and they're like, oh, this party's pretty good. Yeah. I like it. There's a level of physicality in this sport that isn't necessarily in the NBA anymore.
Oh, it's always been chippier because they're not vertical. So they're banging into each other, and it's a very physical league.
Exactly right. And so I think that if you have a good product and your biggest hurdle is getting people to sample the product, she's a godsend. There's no denying it. And again, there's a lot of complicated components to it. But just because something has complicated components doesn't mean every discussion about it has to be complicated. And you can just be like, she is a supernova a level of fame with one-of-a-kind talent, and it is game-changing for the entire league that she's in.
Now it's time for Power Players, brought to you by BMW, the ultimate driving machine. This week it's SGA. His play is leading the Thunder to a 3-1 lead over the T-Wolves. In Game 4, he had 40 points, 10 assists, 9 rebounds. OKC is a win away from the finals. What is it that sets apart these power players from the rest? Bottom line, it's their attention to detail and their innovative playing styles and relentless drive for performing at the highest level. The same goes for my BMW iX. Love mine. Everything you love about the ultimate driving machine, electrify. Well, and also she had a rivalry with a star college player in college, so we have a visceral connection, which college basketball no longer gives you. It's what college football gives you all the time. Where, J.J. McCarthy, you're like, oh, I mean, you see all these Buckeyes and Michigan Wolverines. Yeah. When I think J.J. McCarthy, I think Michigan. I don't think pro football player. I want to go to Baker Mayfield. I thought you had an interesting, somebody once in the last year asked Baker Mayfield about me and blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, we're frenemies. And I think Baker knows I like him and respect him. And he's always been nice to me. He said nice things publicly. You had a take the other day that he was over-discussed when he was in Cleveland. He's now under-discussed.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think Baker's better than Dak. He's better than Tua. He's better than Geno. He's better than Aaron. He's better than Russell. He's better than Cousins. I think he and Darnold are very similar, that they can be mistake prone, but they can plan it, and they're real players.
40 touchdowns last year. He's been really good. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, Baker is a prime example. You see this a lot in the NBA, where a guy comes in and he just needs to mature, Ant Edwards. In the NFL, generally, maturity is not the issue. It's you either have it or you don't. Baker was the rare, a lot of testosterone, a lot of confidence, and I felt like, can somebody turn the governor down just a little? Sure. He was Johnny Manziel, but more likable and with actual talent. He could really throw a football. But I think Baker is the rare NFL player and quarterback. You're like, one of the talents, inarguable. He's just got to turn the governor down. Cleveland was not built for Baker. You go to a great GM, a talented roster in Tampa, which is, by the way, below the radar. It's in the NFC South, which is a low-profile division. Baker now is absolutely under-discussed. He is a really good NFL quarterback. I don't think that's disputable.
Yeah, I think it's hard to make a top 10 and not include him. And then when you add to the fact that he makes around 60% of what the other guys in that top 10 make, his value is massive. For a guy who dealt with injuries in his time in Cleveland, he's incredibly durable. His teammates love him, and he now has back-to-back years of really high productivity. A playoff quarterback, win the division. Again, 40 touchdowns last year. And so, yeah, I think that because he was talked about so much when he wasn't yet that good, I think people got, I don't know if numb's the right word, but they were just kind of got over him. And now that he is, I think, really good, people are just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's Baker. Like, people, I think, boxed him in. He's a good story. And that is true. But he's more than that at this point. At this point, like, this is, a third rail for some. Do I think he's better than Brock Purdy? I do. Would I rather have, and so you said Dak Prescott. I think that's close. I think that there are a lot of quarterbacks that, like, I'll give you a great example. Now, this guy's young and we'll see, but he makes a lot of money. I think he's pretty clearly better than Jordan Love. And I think that Jordan Love is discussed like he is, you know what I mean? This ascending guy.
It's interesting. So I was really not anti-Jordan Love, but I said for 2 years, there is more footage of Bigfoot than Jordan Love. They're hiding him for a reason. Yeah. Then he came out and he was kind of sensational, and I really bought into him. And then it's as if the league defensive coordinators got all this footage and they found holes. And at the end of last year, you're like, oh, people have caught on to him. This is, now it would be a sophomore slump for anybody else, but he was like in his 4th year.
5th year, yeah.
And so I want to see him. So now it's like an NBA playoff series. Like, you get worked, then you change things, and then there's stages and coaching, adaptations to a playoff series.
Yep.
Yeah. So now I've seen Jordan shock the league. Now I've seen people react and he struggles. Now I want to see his next hand with Matt LaFleur. That's why they drafted, to me, a receiver in the 1st round, because they're like, listen, he may need a little more help than we think here. So I'm not sure Baker's better. I think Jordan's got a hell of a whip and he's a really good athlete, but he's one of the last quarterbacks in this league. Jordan Love, I'm not sure. I know who's bad. I know who's good. I know who's pretty good. Jordan Love is the last. I'm not really sure what he is in the league to me.
I'm going to throw another guy that I think this guy's really good, but I'm going to put the not sure, and that's CJ. I think CJ's really good.
So do I.
I think it is hard in the modern NFL to be really good if you hate running. You don't, you know what I mean? And now, like, I'm sure CJ, especially because he's black quarterback, like, was probably, felt pressure, like, to prove to everyone, like, I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not a running back with that also play in the position. I'm a true prototypical pocket passer. The problem with that is that position, it's not extinct, but it is on the Matt Stafford, Jared Goff, Joe Burrow style. It's just a hard way to make a living. And it doesn't mean you have to be, one read and then take off and run, but it's a nice pitch to have, particularly come the playoffs.
Well,
and I thought CJ in the playoffs last year actually went to it a little more, and so that was a good sign, but I just want to see a little more from him. But yeah, I think in general, we usually know who these guys are. And then there are guys who, like, this is the thing that I would say about guys like Darnold or Geno. I don't think Darnold's a weird one for you because you always saw this really good player. But I think people that said, like, those guys were not good potentially were correct. And then those guys, through hard work and maturation and learning and getting older, got good. Like, I think that a guy like Geno, I think Geno was probably rightfully a, lower tier backup early, and then worked his ass off, got better, learned more, and became this player. But yeah, I think most of the quarterbacks we know about who they are. The one I'll throw another one at you that to me is the most confusing or most intriguing, and that's Herbert. Because Herbert, there is no question how talented he is. But 5 years into your career, you need more than just he throws an amazing ball. And there's not a lot of quarterbacks who 5 years into their career, who ended up being amazing, who 5 years into their career hadn't accomplished anything. And he's on that list.
Yeah, no, his first two head coaches, though, Dean Spanos and Till Harbaugh, never paid money for a coach. So his first two coaches were a miss. So I do think he's a rare, circumstantially, I think he's a rare. I think the people in the league that I know all love him. He was also, and the Justin Herbert criticism is fair. He was mechanical. On film, people thought he was mechanical. Tom Telesco, who drafted him, said, we thought he was mechanical. Then I went and watched him in person, and I saw him play the best Wisconsin defense of all time, and went, oh, okay, he's not that mechanical. But he can be sort of a rhythm quarterback where when he gets out of rhythm, I've said this about certain players are like the Pacers are a rhythm offense. Halliburton leaves for 4.5 minutes. They can't get the rhythm back. It's like, oh, it just doesn't work. Like Herbert's a rhythm thrower. Like he gets into a rhythm. And if you bang him or he gets sacked or a receiver drops it, he can get out of rhythm. A lot of quarterbacks aren't. They just pick it up, they go. So I think the criticism of Herbert are fair, but he's 6'5", a 4.2 biology major with a huge arm.
He's super smart. He's super athletic. He could run more. He did a little more under Harbaugh. Like he in college, he ran the hell out of the ball when they needed to. Here would be kind of a concern I have that is really just a kernel of a belief I have about sports, which is particularly for the most scrutinized positions. So best player on an NBA team, quarterback on a football team. The randomness of your first couple times in a big spot casts the longest shadow imaginable over your career. And so I'll use a basketball example, then a couple football examples. The fact that Kobe, as a teenager basically, was a champion, and that, listen, Kobe was unbelievable on the second two championships with Shaq, but that first championship with Shaq, he was a role player, and it was peak Shaquille O'Neal. But before he is old enough to drink, he's a champion. No one is ever going to be able to be like, can you win a ring with Kobe Bryant? Right. And that gave him, in my opinion, the freedom to be like, I'll take every fucking end-of-game shot. No one can ever say anything bad about me, right? And so it had a real impact. I think Tom Brady is one of the greatest athletes of all time and obviously has the greatest resume of any quarterback ever. I also wonder if they simply hadn't, I won't even do the tuck rule game. If in that first Super Bowl, Vinatieri had
misses the free throws,
misses the field goal, or he makes one bad read or whatever it is, and they don't win there, then does he have the freedom to be him in those moments moving forward? I think there is a chance that we are talking about Russell Wilson the way we talk about Terry Bradshaw if he doesn't throw the Malcolm Butler pick. Because I think if they would have won that Super Bowl and he really believed I'm ordained by God to do this, that it then led to itself. And then go ahead.
Well, no. And by losing that Super Bowl and throwing that pick, it eroded the chemistry in the locker room, and it was never the same off one play.
And I think it eroded for him this feeling of this is meant to be. The flip side to Brady or to Kobe example is Peyton. So Peyton, early in his career, came up short in a couple big spots, and then the weight got bigger and bigger, and he got that moniker. even though he's as talented as any football player I've ever seen. So the reason I bring that up is I I worry that for Herbert, he is going to walk into his next playoff game with the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Yeah.
He's going to be like, I've been here. I basically played 2 real and 1 de facto playoff game. The de facto was the Week 18 Chargers Raiders. Remember that? Where like a tie, you both go to the playoffs, and the Raiders steal it at the end. We blew a 4-score lead to the Jags, and I threw 4 picks in my other playoff game. And it's so fleeting what that,
Yes.
what those can be. And so that is to me like
Well,
a real, and something I'm excited to see moving, because you've seen how it's worn on Lamar, and you see the freedom Mahomes plays with. Mahomes like, nobody can ever call me anything but clutch, and he can play like that.
it's almost summer in the DMV. And if you love golf, you know things are heating up halfway through the major season. The U.S. Open is up next, when People's champ Bryson DeChambeau will defend his title. Before that, though, Bryson's got a battle at Robert Trent Jones Golf Club June 6th through the 8th, along with John Rahm, Brooks Koepka, and loads of other major stars. This is going to be great. Live Golf Virginia, presented by Madden, a golf event unlike any other. Get up close with the sport's biggest stars. They are fan-friendly. They have a fan festival for fun for all ages, celebrate a live concert from the rising country star Dylan Gassett. So if you're looking for an electric atmosphere this June where sports and entertainment and culture collides, come celebrate with the stars. Grab your tickets now at livegolf.com. That's livegolf.com. Or if you can't make it this time, you can follow every shot live and exclusively on Fox Sports. Well, Lamar now is feeling the pressure. You can see Lamar in playoff games is tight. I think eventually the failures of the Chargers and the Spanos family to get the right coach got them to pay $15 million a year for Harbaugh, so he has his kingmaker. And I also think this is something that people don't really understand this. I think men, at least in America, tend to worship other men. And we just forget that Michael Jordan for years didn't do shit without Pippen, and at the end it was pathetic in Washington. But it's 6 for 6, and he's the greatest ever, and he failed at baseball. And Michael got Phil Jackson and Scottie Pippen, and everything changed. He was just kind of a ball hog who couldn't get past Boston. He couldn't get past Detroit. It didn't get along with a lot of teammates early in Chicago or late in Washington. And even when he was with the Bulls, he was hard in the documentary. Tom Cruise is a great example. So Tom Cruise goes in a high school play, and a year later, he's in the movies. And not long after that, he's in a risky business. And that really defines him. I mean, Ray-Ban sales exploded, from the underwear scene in risky business. So Tom had absolute talent. But if you go back and look at Tom Cruise, who is as driven, willful, and obsessed about movies as anybody, it wasn't until his last 5 to 6 movies where he finally came to terms with, I'm just going to run a lot and do action movies, and they all hit. And his last 5 to 6 movies have been massive hits. He did Rock of Ages, Eyes Wide Shut, Vanilla Sky, who some people really like. I've never seen it. He had lots of misses. Marlon Brando had lots of misses. So think how long it took for finally a Bradley Cooper to find the right director, or Tom Cruise to find the right vehicle. He was always talented, but like Herbert, he needs his Harbaugh. And that's what I think we tend to forget, is that Michael Jordan had Doug Collins and Stan Ulbrich, but no Scottie Pippen. He couldn't win a playoff series.
Correct.
None of them. So you just need so much help. And that's, when anybody will ever ask me, about, oh gosh, how do you think you've done it for 30 years and you've been doing this? And I say, I've had great help. I've had really good bosses. I've had a couple stinkers, but overwhelmingly, I've had really good support and really good agents and really good bosses. I would have been somewhat successful. But the point being is, if you find a great stockbroker, or Obama, he has somewhere he's got a kingmaker behind him. Somebody behind him believed in him. And we just forget that in sports. And that Mahomes would have been successful, but Brett Veach and Andy Reid are a big part
Oh yeah,
of it.
well, yeah, and that it's also one of the reasons that I find I find it really fun, but also frustrating at times when we trying to parse individual credit for team sport success is one of the most fun things about our business, and it's also why a guy you and I see similarly, but is, one of the more polarizing, if you will, quarterbacks is so interesting in Purdy. Because it's so much of, all right, are we, like I argue with Wilds about it. Wilds basically, his take is that I believe when the Niners win, Shanahan won, and when they lose, Purdy lost. Like, that the Shanahan gets the credit and doesn't get the blame. And my actual take is that I think that there are a lot of factors that have gone into why a quarterback who everyone in the league, including the Niners, thought was not that good, has had, statistically, one of the 3 or 4 greatest starts to a career in the history of the sport. I understand there are misses. I get it. I know Brady went 199. I understand all that. But when people with Purdy, people will say, you would feel differently if he were the number 1 pick. And my answer is yes, of course.
Of course, he'd be a better player.
Right. Right. Because that's
Look at
you wouldn't the draft, it's not random. Like, if he were the number 1 pick, he wouldn't be undersized. He would have a slightly stronger arm.
That's right.
He would, like there's real things to it.
Tony Romo was undrafted when Bill Parcells found him. So the first 4 to 5 years of Tony Romo's roster was great. They didn't pay him anything. He was free.
Right. Yeah.
The minute they started paying Tony Romo, the offensive line wasn't as good, and Tony Romo couldn't win big games, even though Tony Romo is a really good B+, A- quarterback. But Tony Romo was free. Kurt Warner early in his career, who I think is great, undervalued historically, came into the league, he was free. There's no question that Brock Purdy's lineup was stacked.
Well, and listen, we've done the Purdy thing before. What is so frustrating to me about the Purdy thing is, and maybe this is why it's an argument I can't get over, is, and I'm going to make this point, till the end of my career, as long as this is relevant. For years, folks argued about Jimmy Garoppolo. Is he just a winner? Is he underrated? Did he make Brady nervous because he was breathing down his neck? And then there were folks like me who was like, I actually think he's pretty mediocre. And they'd be like, no, that team was terrible. And then he got there. They went to an NFC Championship game. They went to a Super Bowl. And I kept saying, I really think 25 quarterbacks in the league, if you gave them the defense the Niners had then, that head coach, those weapons, they would be incredibly successful. And it's like, well, that's a hypothetical. We'll never know. And then they literally replaced him with the last pick of the draft, had the exact same level of success. And those same people, instead of being like, shit, maybe you're right, they're like, that new guy, he's fucking awesome too. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm like, they literally did it. They didn't replace him with a first-round pick. They replaced him with the last pick of the draft. And guess what they did? They went to an NFC Championship game like they did with Jimmy. They then went to a Super Bowl like they did with Jimmy. They lost the Super Bowl to literally the same team in very similar fashion. And you're like, turns out they're both awesome. And then I'm like, hey, by the way, how's Garoppolo look now that he's gone?
Can't play. They're
like, oh, well, injuries, I guess. I'm like, or maybe he's stuck. Like, I think Purdy's obviously better than Garoppolo. But, like, Garoppolo is a below-average quarterback who looked quite good. I think Purdy's an average quarterback who looks great in the exact same system. And, by the way, Jimmy Garoppolo never had Christian McCaffrey. And I just feel myself going crazy on it. And then they paid him $53 million. So what do I know?
BMW didn't just design an all-electric SUV. Every detail of the BMW iX was crafted with passion and precision. With a BMW iX, you'll experience unmatched power, utility, spaciousness, and versatility. My favorite feature has to be the cloud-based navigation that monitors charge levels and locates nearby charging stations so I can drive electric with ultimate ease. BMW lets performance do the talking, and the scouting report is in. Experience the all-electric BMW iX and witness dedication in every detail. BMW, the ultimate driving machine. So I've always thought it's interesting. I didn't grow up with a lot of tradition. I went to church. I went to Sunday school probably 2 or 3 times as a kid. My family was Protestant, but I'm agnostic. I've said that on the air a million times. I have no idea what's out there. Much like COVID, I'm not an epidemiologist, nor do I have any expertise in religion. I just don't know. So I did not grow up I had divorces for my parents. I did not grow up in a traditional family like many of my listeners. So therefore, I understand people who really gravitate to tradition. It is kind of remarkable, though. 40% of America lives in the zip code they were born in. That's almost half. That's pretty crazy. Yeah. I'm now in a new city, Chicago. Like I just have moved my whole life, and give me about 2 weeks, I'm totally comfortable. So I understand that I don't really care. I'm not a USC graduate, but I just think things change. And USC moved into a much better conference, and the only people that followed him to the Big Ten were Oregon, Washington, and UCLA, their 3 biggest rivals. So they lost all the bad teams in the Pac-12. They entered a much better conference with the 3 toughest teams to beat. And now we have a 12-team playoff where they could play 4 other great teams at the end of the year. It is amazing what tradition does. It makes smart men, beautiful women in sports, makes smart men dumb. It is remarkable to me that people are clinging to this game and do not understand that Lincoln Riley is paid to get to the playoff. Nothing more. He could beat UCLA 38 years in a row. If he never got to the playoff, he wouldn't last 38 years. He'd last 3 more. And that I'm confounded by people that don't see what USC is doing, which is basically, we want to get to the playoff. We don't want to play Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, Washington, Penn State, and then have a November game in South Bend, Indiana as a warm weather team. I've told you this before. There's never been a dome dynasty. Marino was not a dynasty. Warm weather teams, when the playoffs are outdoors in January, are at a disadvantage. That's why the Patriots, the Ravens, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Packers, the Seahawks, San Francisco have felt kind of like dynasties. Dallas a little, but it's colder in Dallas in the winter than people think. So USC is like, hey, listen, we don't want 5 cold games against 5 powers. Are you, now you're not a huge college football fan, you've told me this, but is there ever anything like this that you're shocked, maybe it's the Brock Purdy situation, you're shocked people are struggling with change?
So no, but I actually want to stay on this because I do have a question for you on it because I've heard you talk about this. And this would be pushback. I don't even know if it's pushback, just my concern. My concern would be, you're right, what Lincoln Riley's job is.
Yeah.
But this to me is like the first cousin of what we've talked about this, when we talk about baseball changing rules and the NBA potentially needing to change rules, and about how the GM's job is to build a team under the current rules. The coach's job is to look at the current rules and construct, the best strategy possible. The commissioner's job is to make sure the product is as entertaining as possible and to make sure it gets the most eyeballs as possible. And my question would be, do you think holistically college football runs a risk the more it just markets itself as a minor league NFL if people love football at the highest level, the NFL is the place to go. But there are a lot of people in this country, way more so with the NFL and college football than there is with college basketball and the NBA, where you ask them and they say, college football is my favorite. I watch the NFL. I love college football. And a lot of that is the tradition, the rivalries, the pageantry, the fucking cheerleaders and the Saturdays and all of it. Do you not worry at all that because there is no commissioner of college football, because everyone is just thinking what is best for me right now, that there isn't a risk for the sport as a whole that USC-Notre Dame, even as a guy who doesn't care, like, it's not that I don't care about college football, it's like my 7th favorite thing in sports, I'm like, well, that going away would suck. Like, that's like, and I don't, like, that to me is something that I think can't be missed, which is whether it should matter or it doesn't. I don't think it's best for college football to just be the NFL with younger people.
It's not going to be. It's going to become college basketball with a different ball. That the best thing about it will be it's
playoff?
3.5 week tournament at the end. That's what it'll be. It won't be a poor man's NFL. It'll be a superman's college basketball. It'll be a better version of what college basketball is, where the regular season's fun and there's some rivalries, but it's about that 16-team playoff at the end. And it'll be 4 to 5 weeks. It'll be, jet fuel. And I mean, Texas, Georgia last year gets a monster number, not Texas, Oklahoma. And that Auburn, Alabama will always play. And by the way, Ohio State, Michigan will always play. Michigan State will play. But there will be a handful of rivalries that will possibly subside. And that's just the cost of shifting the importance to December. December was always the Holiday Bowl, the Citrus Bowl. I always was bummed out. I went to Larry Jones when he was like the guy at Fox who like paid for bowls and negotiated deals. I'm like, let's get more bowls. He goes, they all lose money. And I'm like, what a bummer. I wish we had like 10 bowls. And in the end, the bowls felt bigger than they were. They're independent films. They make the artists and the actors happy, but most don't. Most are not Reservoir Dogs,
Right?
Right. And so the bowl games, made sponsors happy, but they didn't sell out and they didn't necessarily get a rating. And so basically it's going to be a hyper version of March Madness. Eventually it needs to build up the culture and build up, like we have to get used to December being amazing.
No, that's a really smart kind of way to look at it, which is the rich man's college basketball. And again, the way I like things doesn't mean it's the right way, but I have to tell you, if I were in charge of a sport, very far down the list of sports that I would be like, what we should emulate? Men's college basketball, where for 4 months, people are not all that interested, and then you do like, and this is something that maybe the world's changing in that, where is it more valuable to have everyone's rapt attention for 3 weeks and be, off the radar for 49 than to have a lot of people's pretty good attention for 12 weeks, but to never be the zeitgeist? I don't know. Like, maybe I've talked to our friend Maverick about this, which is his belief that, like, we are moving to where it's all about events. He's like, I talked with him, and he said...
That's college football. It'll be an event.
An event. Like, where you can have people over and be like, he said this is why he thought the NFL was so successful, is they could make so many games feel like an event. That the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson thing, that was an event, a moment, rather than inventory of a bunch of stuff. Maybe that's where we're headed. Maybe when everything is so fragmented, all of our attention,
that's what we are.
Standalone events.
Here's the things. If I had to say, here's 8 things that are going to work going forward: the World Cup, the Olympics, depending on teams, the World Series, March Madness, the NFL, the college football playoff, and if you get really popular UFC fighters, big UFC events, those will all work. And then what's going to struggle is the Major League Baseball, the MLS, the NBA, and the NHL regular season. Fox
Yeah.
has tried to inject the game in London, Mets, Phillies, the Field of Dreams.
Rickwood Field, the Field of Dreams. That's cool. And again, not to sound like a company shill, the way Fox made, and I'm not just saying this because they sent
the Indy 500.
The Indy 500 feel huge. America responded. 5 million people watched it last year. 7 million people watched it. Right. People were in. And so maybe that is the answer. Maybe it is turning things into events. That also, I've pitched this 100 times. I'll pitch it to you here. It also is another reason. And if anyone ever does this, because I've been pitching it for a decade, just make me some consultant on the league. I still believe there is a market for boxing. And I think that with all this Saudi money or whatever it is, if somebody, you would need a few billionaires, I've been talking about this for 10 years, to go to the top 16 fighters in every weight class and say, who is your promoter and your TV? Who is your contract with? Why, the reason that there's 7 belts and this and you can't fight, we're buying them all out, everyone out. And here's the deal. We are signing you to the league. Our league has very simple rules. You fight 4 times a year. You have an official ranking. The ranking says if you are the 8th ranked fighter, you fight the 9th ranked fighter. We have monthly pay-per-views. We have 4 weight classes. We have 1 belt per weight class. And every single pay-per-view, one of the belts is going to be on the line. Everyone's going to know every month there is a big event. And guess what? Being the heavyweight champion of the world is going to mean something again. And everyone's going to know who it is because it's one person. Because as much as successful as UFC has been, I still believe that there is a barrier to entry for UFC that does not exist for boxing, which is nobody ever has been like, yeah, I don't understand that sport with boxing. It's very fucking simple. It's like, hey, they're going to punch each other and someone might get knocked out. And I like UFC. I don't think it's that hard to understand. But everyone has been like, oh, I don't get it. Like, how does it scoring? Like, what's a... And so if somebody just took Dana White's UFC model and made it a boxing model, and the other free advice here is, hey, guys, people are worried about judge corruption. I don't know how much judges cost, but you know how to make sure there's not corruption? Instead of having 3, have 9 and do the figure skating scoring thing, which is the highest and the lowest scores don't even count, and it's the 7 scorecards done, fixed. I think boxing could be a big event again as well.
Yeah.
Like, I think people are into it if they feel like it's on the level and they know the people. You just have to know the people involved, but it's 2 segments.
Sorry to interrupt this great video, but please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you. Now back to the video. Listen, I've gone to more boxing than I have UFC, and I say that having the last 6 years gone to at least 3 UFC fights per year.
Right.
So when I was in
Vegas, you used to go every weekend probably almost. Yeah.
Right. So I love UFC. But I do think John Jones and Conor McGregor were dynamite. And when you take them out, it's looking for, there's some guys I like. There's 5 or 6 guys I'm really into. But boxing has always been somewhat beholden, like basketball. It's a star-driven sport, like
superstars.
A dynamic or enigmatic or controversial star. That's just part of it. Football's basically, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Everything else in this country, brands, market, stars matter. Everything else, including the UFC, and Dana would probably tell you that the pay-per-views for Conor McGregor and John Jones were just different. And it has nothing to do with management. It's just there are these supernova North Star athletes in every sport but football that move a needle.
Do you? Let me ask you a football question. It's a dumb kind of more of a dumb sports TV thing, but I actually want to know what you think of it. Have the Chiefs become America's team?
Yes.
Or will that always be the Cowboys?
No. In fact, the Cowboys were tied for third in total audience, and that's because Fox puts them on games they probably shouldn't be. But because the biggest draws right now are the Chiefs and the Bills and the Ravens, and the Niners are also big, and the Packers. But I think after this year, when Dallas wins 5 to 6 games, because I think they have the worst probably head coach in the league, arguably. Good I think he was an average coordinator.
Certainly the most unproven and the oddest hire. Yeah.
So my take is Dallas will be the 4th most watched team in the league after this year. Now, Fox may, because of Fox promotion and marketing ability and production values, we may be able to prop up the Cowboys. Yeah, I mean, Fox just does it. Fox gives you if you give Fox baseball, it just is better than other networks doing baseball. Fox is really good at. Eric Shanks lived in a truck. That's how your CEO, everybody has a specialty. Bodenheimer was sales. When I was at ESPN could monetize anything.
Because the guy
Shanks
in charge
grew
was
up
a sales guy.
in a truck. So our production values are sensational. They always have been. I mean, I said this a couple years ago. The 5 to 6 hour live Super Bowls, from opening moment the pregame show starts to the end, they're majestic. They're like as good as American television gets for live 5 hours. So I think Fox may prop the Cowboys up, and if you put them on another network, they wouldn't resonate as much. But they're not a fun team. Dak is a boring player, a second lower body injury. He's not hyper athletic. He doesn't have a big arm. They have a couple of interesting receivers. They're not fun to watch. Philadelphia is fun to watch. Detroit's fun to watch. Buffalo, Kansas City. There's some teams in this league that I mean, like when the receivers are healthy, Houston's fun to watch. When the receivers are healthy, Cincinnati's fun to watch. But no, I think Kansas City's actually America's team. Absolutely, I don't think there's any question. I would say Buffalo to me feels like number 2.
Oh, listen, I think Buffalo is probably the team the team neutral fans root for the most. Because I think they look at Buffalo not as an underdog, but like, man, they got to get over at some point. And Josh Allen is so likable, and the Chiefs have kind of become like villains, to a degree, all that. But yeah, I think the team that is the biggest draw and the most interesting is the Chiefs. And that the reason I even asked it is it just speaks to the power of the NFL that the most popular or most interesting team in the biggest league in the country can be from Kansas City, Missouri. You know what I mean? Like that it doesn't have to be.
Think about this. The NBA playoffs are heating up, and if you want to catch the action in person, and I know you do and I do, go to Game Time. They make getting tickets faster and easier, even for hard-to-get playoff tickets. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. So last-minute deals, killer, all-in prices, views from your seat, lowest prices guaranteed. Game Time is great. It takes the guesswork out of buying professional basketball playoff tickets. And you don't want to go there guessing. They have zone deals. You can save even more when you choose a section. Let Game Time choose the seats. And with Game Time ticket coverage, your price is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the entire ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. The code is Colin for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account. The redeem code COLIN, $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Here's the 6 biggest brands in the NFL, arguably now: Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, Green Bay.
Yeah. San Francisco probably still, Dallas, but still, it's none of the New York. It's not LA, even though the Rams are good. Yeah. All right. Can I tell you something else? Because you'll like it. I don't know if there's
Yeah.
something else you wanted to get to.
No, please.
I'm gonna show you something. So look. So look at this here. I don't even know if you'll be able to see it. I'm
Let me
gonna
see.
put it up. See if you can see what that is. That
Okay,
is a
that's an autograph.
Nick Wright poker trading card.
Okay, now back it up for the camera. Go the other side.
Hold on. Okay.
Turn around. There we go. Look at that.
So here's the craziest piece of this. I had to buy this on eBay because I signed all these for this company, but I didn't get like it's trading cards, so they all got sent out in sets, and the set they sent me didn't have my own card, so I had to pay like $40. That's the going rate for a Nick Wright poker or leaf trading card. But the reason I brought it up is because, and I know you'll be excited about this for me, today is the first day of the World Series of Poker. And a week from today, I fly to Vegas to play in like 4 tournaments. So I'm going to be in Vegas from...
How much do you take?
Well, it's a wire. But it'll be... I mean, I'll tell you the tournaments I'm playing. So I'm playing in the $10,000 Dealer's Choice. So that's a tournament that it's one of the most prestigious. It's going to be a bunch of pros and me. The Dealer's Choice means, Colin, there's 22 different variations. There's old school 5-card draw. There's 7-card stud. There's games you've never heard of like Badoogie, Badoosie. There 22 different games could be played. And every 7 hands, a different player at the table gets to say, okay, for the next 7 hands, we're playing this. And then you got to play it. So that is, you have to be able to you have to A, know the rules and how to play every single one of the games. And B, you have to be able to pick up on, oh wait, that person made a grievous mistake on that game. So everyone should call that game until that person's out of here because they're drawing dead at it. It's really like a fascinating way. So I'm going to play that. I'm going to play the $10,000 7-card stud. And then I'm going to play a $1,500 Badoogie tournament, which Badoogie is you get 4 cards. It's a draw game. You need all 4 suits as low cards as possible. Seems silly. It's awesome. And then I'm going to play what is the silliest tournament in World Series of Poker history, which is the Pot Limit Omaha Double Board Bomb Pot Tournament. But none of that, those specifics are more interesting to real poker players. What is exciting for me is, literally as we speak right now, there is a $25,000 10-team fantasy draft going on. I think it's winner take all, where it's a World Series of Poker fantasy draft. So it's like football players. So like Phil Hellmuth, every team involved, 10 teams or people put up 25 grand. They sell pieces of it, whatever. And then a guy like Phil Hellmuth, every team has $200 in salary to spend, and then they do an auction for the players, and however well you do in the tournaments is, how many points you get for your team. So like Phil Hellmuth will probably go for like $100 or whatever it is. And I think there's a chance, probably just on a lark, but that somebody pays $1 to draft me to be on their World Series of Poker fantasy team in case I bink one of these tournaments. So while I've been talking to you, when you've seen me glance down at my phone, I've been trying to check and see if somebody did what is probably bad general managing, but spent $1 to have my results at the World Series count for their fantasy team. So I know all of this is very complicated and confusing for people who aren't poker players, but for people who are poker players, this is maybe the single coolest thing about being me, is that because of my success, whatever that is in my professional life, I've got to basically just parachute into part-time professional poker player and play with all of the best players in the world. And I love it so much. And the World Series starts today, and I'll be out there in a week. So it's very exciting.
So is there resentment in the industry because you've been able to parachute in?
No, because anybody can, because that's the great thing about poker. Every tournament's open entry. You just got to fork up the money. You know what I mean? So like
If I asked you,
yeah,
and I want you can have hubris confidence. If I said to you, truly, publicly, where do you rank in the world? If I said to you, are you a top 30 poker player in the world?
No, 0% chance. 0% chance. No, nowhere close to that. But this is what's so interesting about poker. Some of the most profitable poker players in the world, of which I am not even close to any of that, but are not top 1,000 players. They are just good players who only play with awful players. Poker's really weird like that. So here is the part where these tournaments are a different story because anybody can buy into the tournament.
It's the opposite of golf where your score is your score on the course. It doesn't matter who you play with.
Correct. It's the exact opposite. Where I am very lucky is
you play against great players.
Well, no, you don't want to. I in these tournaments I play against great players, and that's just fun to test myself. But as far as cash games or if you're trying to make money, what you want is to get invited to the games with the tech billionaires, the retired athletes, the influencers, or whatever it is. Right. And those games, I can get into a lot of those games. Now, a lot of those games that I've been invited to, I actually don't have the bankroll for them. Those games, people are bringing $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 to them. But the actual best players in the world don't get invited to those games. They're like, why would we invite you? Why would we invite a great player to those games? So I don't know. It's just what I love. I've played poker since I was 9 years old. I'm 40. And now I through what I do, I know all the best players in the world. I can pick their brain on stuff. And in a week, I'm going to go to Vegas and see how I do in some of these tournaments. It's very exciting. I know it's nerdy. It's so exciting.
You never answer the question. How much will you wire to Vegas? How much money? Total. The NBA Finals are almost here, and every play could be the one that changes everything. This is the NBA playoffs. Heroes rise. Legacies are built. The action never lets up. And with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, you don't just watch the madness, you live it. I do. Back your favorite team. Ride with your clutch time killer. Bet in the buzzer beaters, the breakout performances, the game-winning threes. They have player props, same-game parlays. It's how you take your fandom to the next level. If you're new to the game, no sweat. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Takes 90 seconds. Bet $5. That's it. $5. That's it. If your bet wins, you'll score $300 in bonus bets. Pretty easy. Download the app from DraftKings Sportsbook. The code is Colin, C-O-L-I-N. C-O-L-I-N. $300 in bonus bets if a $5 bet wins. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Like 60?
Oh, I thought it was going to be like $250,000 or something.
No.
Well, you've made a lot of money playing poker.
Yeah, I know. I've made a lot of, well, thank you. I shouldn't have said, yeah, I know. But no, because those tournaments, that's why I told you, the two big tournaments are $10,000 to enter each. So there's 20. There's two more $2,500 tournaments, so there's 25. And then the rest, like cash game stuff, whatever. But here's the other thing that's very interesting about this poker world, about gambling world. If I wired $250,000 to Vegas, I don't know how much money I would have to make a year for that not to annoy my wife that I wired $250,000 somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more than I currently make. But I'll tell you a quick story that you'll love. I was in Vegas for something. Whatever it was, this was like 2 months ago. I didn't even think I was going, and then I went, and I was just there a Sunday to a Tuesday. And that Sunday night, I walked by the Aria, or I'm staying in the Aria, but I walk by the poker room, and I see a guy I know, and and that UFC fighter who I don't like, Colby Covington. The guy always talks shit about LeBron. they're playing in a private game in the high limit room in Aria. And I walk by and say hello to the guy I know there, but he's getting ready to leave. And I was just coming in and say hello. And he's like, "Oh, I'm leaving." He's like, "Do you want my seat?" And I'm like, "Oh no, like I was just saying hi." I was like, I didn't even know I was coming to Vegas until yesterday. It's Sunday. I was like, I have no money here. So thank you. The guy whose game it was, credit to this guy, and I'd say his name because I want to give him the compliment, but I don't want to say his name because I don't know if he'd want this out there. He just flicks me 2 $25,000 chips. And is like, just text me. He's like, "I'm going to text you. Give me your number." He was like, "You're good for it. I know." We've never met. I knew his buddy who was in the game. He maybe knew me from the show and was just like, this guy's probably not going to stiff me on $50,000, and just tossed it to me so I could play in the game. So there is and now luckily that night, I played for a few hours. I won like $2,000. So I just gave him back, those 2 chips and cashed out whatever it was. But there is a real, like, almost, just, hey, in my notes app, it says you owe me $70,000. Like, there's a lot of amongst the guys who play a lot, like, just, hey, I'll spot you, you spot me, this, that, or the other. But I never, even in the games, I never, ever, ever play on credit. Like that, I did that when I was in college and didn't have any money. And it's the only time I've ever really, like, gotten myself in a really bad spot gambling, where so you play on credit, you can gamble money you don't have. But it was so funny just being out in Vegas. A guy I literally shook hands with for the first time ever just tossed me 2 $25,000 chips. Like, okay, we'll square up at the end of the night. I'm like, all right, let's go.
You're very mathy. Like, to me, playing poker feels like punishment. It's like the movie Papillon. It's my prison. I wouldn't know what to do. I can't.
It's so funny when they invite me to games. My buddy Brent Hanks, who sets up all the TV games for Poker Go, almost every time he invites me, he says, he's like, "And tell Cowherd we've got a seat for him too." I'm like, he's not playing. I was like, I'm just telling you, he's not playing. I was like, I think Colin could pick it up, but it's not. It is not what interests him. It's what interests me, and I'm so excited to go.
No, everybody's got wait. like it's very cool when you can have a hobby and the hobby becomes lucrative, and you and I have talked about this privately before, but it is a revenue stream which you can't count on, like most revenue streams. But it will be a lifetime revenue stream for you because you're good enough that you, on average, will win. And poker is not a game of chance like roulette or even sports betting.
Well,
there are so many factors that mitigate.
It's very hard to be a profitable sports bettor. And the thing for me, though, is this. If I can just be a break-even poker player, I'll make money in poker because I now get to do a lot of cool poker broadcasting stuff. You know what I mean? Like calling events, like doing things. Yeah. And so like I can probably put myself in like this $10,000 dealer's choice tournament. In poker, they talk about EV, the expected value. I am minus EV in that. Like I am entering, of the 100 tournaments at the World Series of Poker this summer, this $10,000 dealer's choice is probably one of the 6 hardest fields, meaning more professionals versus recreational players of any of them. And so that is, from a financial perspective, that's one of the dumbest tournaments I can enter. But I just want to play against the best in the world and see how I do. Like, you know what I mean? Like I can, it to me is worth it to take that shot. And if I were to do well, it's just lifetime, like, bragging rights in that tournament. And so I'm really excited about it.
My only hobby is there's no way to make money. It's expensive. And I love getting on a plane and going to Europe. I love it. It's my favorite, the happiest
I am
will be Thursday night. Well, yeah. And Thursday night, I'll be getting on a flight to go see my son who's taking a class over there, and we'll go to Copenhagen and London, and I'm in my heaven. Just going, business class, eat, glass of wine, the whole thing.
That's exciting.
My favorites. My favorite thing. I've told my wife she doesn't like travel as much as I do, but I've always said going, mom British, going to Europe. I've got, there's just a lot of places in England.
Is your son in London or in Copenhagen?
No, he's in London, and I'm going to go meet him there, and then we're going to head off to Copenhagen. And we try to go to, we went to Iceland a couple of years. Every couple of years, we try to go somewhere international. That to me is, and by the way, you just hemorrhage money.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, international travel, if you want to do it right, is it's no joke.
Where I will agree with you, and then I've never felt like I wasted money on a good meal or a good vacation. Never. I've never felt like that sucked. Would have been better. Like, where else? I don't know a better way to spend the money rather than to see different parts of the world, experience different cultures, or to eat great food. London is one of the places I've never been.
Oh, my favorite city in the world.
See, so tell me before we go, because I know we got to go. I live in New York City.
Yeah.
Right? How is London not just New York with way worse food?
Well, because it doesn't smell like weed and urine everywhere you walk.
Okay, I probably does a little. I
think it is, it's like Zurich and London are like, it's a moneyed crowd. It is incredible hotels, incredible service. I like to walk. I'm a walker. So for me, I bring tennis shoes, and I literally every morning get up. I'll go walk through the parks for 2 hours, and then the cab system's amazing. You have to train for like 4 years to be a cabbie. You have to know every street in London. So it's a 4-year process. So it's like a tour guide. The cabbies are like a tour guide.
Oh, wow.
So, you give them 10 pounds and you go drive to drive to drive. It works for me. I've told my wife this. There's something about London when I land, I feel like I'm home. I don't even know what it is.
Isn't what it is your mom's from there?
Yeah, and I've been there enough but it just, for whatever reason, I'm sure there's somebody that's listening that they go to Hawaii every year, they go to Greece, and it feels the same. It's just as much fun as I can have. I love it.
Well, listen, my takeaway from this is tough beat for Fox, because 4 years from now, Cowherd's going to be like, Chicago was fun. What do you think about me doing the herd from London? Like, what's the difference, really? It's just later in the day.
Nick Wright, as always, buddy. Great talking.
Great to see you. See you later, buddy.